Yeah, so my understanding of these ways, I kind of touched on it a little bit, is that back in the early 70s, there was an occupation at Wounded Knee in South Dakota, and some of our Chicano people went along to support them. And so I guess there's a lot of people that are interested in these ways nowadays. We weren't one of them. We went up there to fight as warriors, as a part of the Chicano movement and the American Indian movement. And then so not all of our Chicano people made it home. Some of them lost their lives there. And so because of that, the elders of the Lakota people were actually inclined. They viewed us as indigenous people. They spent some time with us. And they, as a result, they extended an invitation because they noticed that we had been disconnected from our people by this so-called border between the United States and Mexico. And so they said, we want to share these our ways with you. And so we were invited to participate in some of the Lakota ceremonies, which were primarily the Sweat Lodge, the Humblecha, which is also known as a Vision Quest, and also the Wiwangwa Chipi, which is also known as the Sundance ceremony. And so just to honor that, we continue to participate in that ceremony here at my uncle's place. They built a lodge over here back in the early 70s, or in the late 70s, and we've continued to maintain this ceremonial ground ever since, and we've continued to maintain our relationships with some of those original families up in South Dakota, and we have had a continuous presence at many of the Sundances in South Dakota. So this particular ceremony here, they call it in Inipi and their Lakota language, but we actually, some people call it a sweat lodge or just a lodge, but nonetheless, it's essentially a purification ceremony. And there's a whole lot of teachings behind it, but we view it as a image of our Mother Earth, the altar itself, which is the fire. And in the middle of the fire, it's the mind of Mother Earth. And there's a whole creation story that scientists agree with, where everything started with one spark. And so when we build this fire, we build it in such a fashion that it only requires like one match to start it, and we reproduce that creation, the one spark that starts everything. And so along the way, there's also some other representation here between the fire and the altar that's in the middle. It represents the backbone of Mother Earth, and then the actual altar itself represents the heart of Mother Earth, and then in between the altar and the actual lodge, it represents the umbilical cord of our Mother Earth. And then the lodge itself, the structure there represents the womb of Mother Earth. So when we get back in, when we go into the lodge, it's kind of like going back into the womb of our mother. And then there's a whole ceremony that takes place. And at the end of the ceremony, we come back out, and it represents like a rebirth. And so there's a lot more to it, which I don't know if I have time for right now. But the ceremony, it includes many of the herbs that we collect and gather, and so we keep things exactly how they showed to us. And so sometimes we use cedar, sometimes we use sage, sometimes we use sweetgrass. The lodge itself is constructed of willows that we collect along rivers, and the structure of the lodge is fashioned in a way to where on the top of it, the willows, when they come together, they make a 8-point star, which some people see in the middle of like star quilts and other images associated with indigenous culture. And so so we refer to it as a morning star lodge, in reference to like one of the most sacred times of the day is when the morning star comes out and brings the sun along with it. And so that's a lot of what this is. A point that I'd like to make is that when we gather our sage and our cedar and some of the other herbs that we use, we typically, we always do it in a way that we make an offering, and we talk to the Creator and ask for permission to utilize those things, and we harvest them in a way that's sustainable, so that they can, so we can conserve it and they can reproduce themselves, and we try to pick them in a way that we only take a certain amount and a certain length, so that way we promote the growth of it, the continued growth of it. And then another thing is that when we harvest our stones that we use for the lodge, which we refer to as our ancestors, our grandmas and our grandpas. And so when we do that, we also make offerings to gather those stones. We only take a certain amount. So we have a lot of respect for the sustainability of those things. We also obviously burn wood. And so when we go harvest wood, we use those same methods. And so it goes along with everything that we do here, including the water. Whenever we access water, we always say a prayer, and we utilize it in a good way, best way we know how, and the way we've been taught.
Thank you so much. Beautiful explanation. Thank you, Josue.